Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to my YouTube channel. My name is Chris Hansen. I'm just kidding. I'm not Chris Hansen. That would be great. No. Maybe. It'd be funny. It'd be really funny. No, I'm just Weebo Jones. And I'm already half a beer in, so you know that this is going to go very well. Sorry. Cavalier Polydog will not turn up today, winky face. I don't know, man. I did invite him, but this was like 12 hours ago. No, 7 hours ago. There's a big difference between what I said and what was actually the truth. Ha! Sorry. Wow, this is really strong stuff. And maybe it's just because I don't have a lot of my tummy here. Also, maybe it's the fact that I'm stalling while we accept more viewership into the live stream, I guess, because I have lots of pictures, guys. No notification? What? It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. I will I will notify the troops on the Twitter sphere and in the Discord. Do you mean no notification is in like no notification in the Discord? Yes, I am drunk off of Stella. Also, I think I can hear myself. Or I think you can hear myself. I can't hear myself. I don't have headphones in. Wow. This is really hard stuff, man. I'm a fucking lightweight. I don't know how I survived Greece and Paris. All right, let's just notify the troops. We're live. This show's going to be a disaster. How the heck am I going to walk you through my entire Paris trip when I'm already shit-faced? I'm not shit-faced. I lied. Hey, guys. How are we? Good morning, people, says Evolved Potato. It is 7 p.m., sir. 7 in the evening. No, it was no YouTube notification, but it popped up already. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So what I did this time is different than what I do every other time with StreamYards is I put it unlisted 2 days ago because this was something that I set up 2 days ago thinking, all right, give myself a deadline so that I have to do it, but I put it unlisted so that like even if I didn't make my deadline quite then, I would still feel obligated. Or I wouldn't still feel obligated if I didn't achieve it. Because there were a few things that I did have to get done when it was that I was going through the Paris photos. There are some things that I had to crop out, some pictures I had to decide whether or not I wanted in, and all that jazz. But we got there, so we're here. We're live. It's 10 a.m. in Aussie land. Wow, I don't know time zones at all. Hi, Irv. How are you? Do you want on? I have a spot. We're about to dive into my travels to Paris. It's going to be great. And I still have to notify everyone in the Discord. There we go. Send now. The long-awaited trip covering. It's been a while. I know. I came back from Paris all the way in mid-January, and then I promised everybody, I will do this live stream. I will walk you through my trip. We will have that journey together. And I've not been postponing it, or I've not been stalling. I've just been busy. You see, I am a senior in college, and many things happen and take precedence over me regaling you with tales about my time in Paris, and also going through those pictures and making sure that they are top-notch. And also, I hadn't gotten this back quite yet, and this is my journal from when it was that I was staying in Paris, and it's got some of my notes on there from Paris that I would like to bring up when it is that I talk about stuff. So I wanted to make sure that I had this, and I just got it today, which is why we scheduled it for today rather than, say, 2 weeks ago. Anyway, the Rubicon Temple's Budsman. I went to Paris once. I feel like I was back in Africa, and it was super scary violent. Then I went to Montpellier, and that was very nice, except for TG Beggars, which I didn't understand. See, okay. Before we get into the live stream, or the slideshow portion of this episode of Weebo Travels the World, I just want to touch on this notion that France is a shithole. So I polled people before it was that I decided on going to Paris. It was down to between visiting, I think it was, yeah, Italy and England for a scientific revolutions kind of excursion, and between Paris for a French Revolution excursion. And I chose the French Revolution because I had just gotten done learning about it. And to be quite frank, I interviewed both of the professors that were leading both of the excursions, and I was not impressed by the scientific revolutions guy, whereas I was by the French Revolutions woman. Just because she seemed more passionate about this subject, more knowledgeable about this subject, more invigorated in talking about it as well. And so I decided it would probably be best if I stuck with her rather than the guy who's just like, just do whatever you want. It's fine. Don't worry about it. That being said, a lot of my other friends did go on the scientific revolutions excursion. Maybe I missed out. I don't know. I'll get there eventually. We'll see. It's fine. Maybe not. Definitely not in college. No. My traveling in college days are over, as far as I'm aware. But my traveling days are certainly not. I have many adventures in the works that I definitely am looking forward to going on. But to the point about France being a shithole, specifically Paris, depends on where it is that you're going. You see, when I was in Paris, I was staying in the 5th arrondissement, which is equivalent to like the 5th district. It's the Latin Quarter, and that's where the students kind of congregate most of the time. And it's much nicer than the shittier parts of the city, certainly. I mean, but it's the student quarter, so it's not like spectacular. It's not like where the rich people hang out, you know? So it had its advantages, it had its disadvantages. It really depends on what part of the city it is that you congregate in or that you go to. There were certainly some parts of the city that I was a little bit nervous about entering into versus not. And there were definitely some transit issues going on while I was there. I'm not going to lie, there were strikes, but we kept a wide berth around them. Remember, Paris is a very big city, and the troubles that ail it, similar to those that most cities around the world have, are only going to be relegated to a very specific sect of the city while it's occurring. Does that make sense? So who else do we have in here? Excuse me. Cavalier. The trouble with France is that it's full of French people, and Paris is full of rude waiters. Okay, I will talk about that a little bit more as we get into this hot potato. Because I do have some comments about that. I think I've mentioned before, when regaling slightly with my tales about my trip to France, I have discussed my, not dissatisfaction, because I was very satisfied. I do love traveling, but in terms of the places that I've been to, Paris isn't high up there on the list, and it's kind of the French people's fault, but also partially the fact that there are too many monuments that are the exact same. I mean, like, if you've been to most of the city, okay, how do I explain this? Most of the city is stylized the exact same way as all of the monuments. So you're walking the streets and you're seeing apartments and storefronts and whatnot that look like the sites that it is that are being advertised as tourist attractions. So it kind of gets monotonous. Does that make sense? What else is there? How was Notre Dame? Burnt. Still under reconstruction. I didn't actually get a chance to go inside and visit. I kind of just dawdled past it on my way to and fro, wherever it was that I was heading to next. Did you see any Sharia courts? I did not. The preponderance of Muslims while I was there in France was at a very low. Thank you, Assassins of the Grey, for shilling this show. I appreciate it greatly. And by the way, guys, thank you for being here and joining me on my regaling with you of the tales of Weebo in Paris, because it means a lot to me that you guys are interested in the things that I do when it is that I'm not doing the normal YouTube stuff, because traveling is one of my great passions in life. My grandmother traveled the world 8 times with her late husband, and I intend to do the exact same thing with my future husband at some point. And nothing's going to stop me. And hopefully I can take you guys on that journey with me in the near future. So that's why we do these things on this channel. Hi, Joelander. Okay. All right. Before you guys keep asking me questions about my trip to France, I'm going to start the slideshow. I have prepared over 200 pictures for you guys, and I hope you enjoy them. Most of them are mine, but there were instances where I didn't quite get a shot that I wanted, and so I've taken from the internet and superimposed it into the slideshow where it is appropriate to place it, so that you kind of get an idea of what it is that I saw. Just maybe sans a good shot. So, those unfortunate things aside, we will continue. I'm going to incorporate the thing into the stream. Well, that's a really small picture of me. And we shall begin. So, this picture, they're not in chronological order, all of them, but they are for the most part in terms of big scenery, event, thing. You'll get what I'm getting at when I get to it, or when I keep going through it. So this is actually the view of the city from my hotel balcony. I was on the 6th floor in a little hotel in the middle of the 5th arrondissement, which I told you guys was the Latin Quarter, or the student section of the city. It was quite nice. I actually really enjoyed it. But this is the 6th floor of the Hotel de Arenas, which is right next to a Roman Latin arena that used to hold games, I think. I'm pretty sure. But it was currently being occupied by a whole bunch of children. I didn't actually get any pictures of it, which is unfortunate, but it was basically ancient ruins being used by the people of France as a park, a public park, which was, I thought, really pretty cool. So you can actually see from the balcony right there in the distance, that's Notre Dame. And that is probably one of the coolest shots that I got the entire time that I was in France. I really like that balcony, staring out at any time of day from that balcony to either side of the street, because I got both sides of the street because I'm that cool. I don't know, just look at it, behold, it's so beautiful. You actually get an idea of the way that city life is in Paris, and I really appreciated that shot. This is taken several days into the trip. Reason being is because first day we got there, it was crappy. I was tired. I was not getting a good shot at all. But we will endure. So the first night that we got there, this is a shot of Le Precope right outside of it in the back entrance, actually. And the reason why I took this picture, even though it's a really shitty picture, not gonna lie, you can't really see anything, but I wanted to memorialize my visit to Le Precope because it's a restaurant that is kind of important in terms of the people who have visited it there. It's one of the oldest establishments within Paris in terms of restaurants, and everyone from, I believe, yes, I have it written down, Ben Franklin to Thomas Jefferson to Jean-Paul Jones to Voltaire have visited Le Precope and eaten there and socialized there, and it was kind of one of those places where historical figures have kind of marked their path, stepped through, and that was momentous for me, I thought. I don't know. That was just pretty cool. You can disagree. It's fine. And we keep going. The next day that we got there, because there wasn't really much to do the first day, we were all dead bone tired after an 8-hour flight and no sleep. But the next day we went to the Louvre, or the Louvre. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. Mark me, guys. The French language is greatly frustrating to me, and it was a perpetual nuisance to me in my time in Paris. I'm not going to lie. It was one of the things that derailed my enjoyment in some cases, because I would get to the point where I was ordering food and I would sound like an absolute ignorant ass as I was ordering the food, because I was pronouncing syllables and vowels and consonants that you're not supposed to, because the French language is so weird. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be super insulting to the French people and their language, but there's a reason I learned Spanish as opposed to French in college. I'm sorry, but I'm not. So we went to the Louvre, and this is actually not the picture that I got of the Louvre when we went to the Louvre. This is actually a picture of the Louvre when we were on the bus the first day. Those will be dispersed intermittently throughout the rest of this slideshow as well. Reason being is because I thought that they fit better when it was that I went to the place that I'm taking pictures of, as opposed to right at the beginning where we just have a mass just entourage of a whole bunch of pictures that I have other pictures for later. So this went here. And continuing on, you see the Louvre and the lovely pyramid, which I'm of mixed opinions about, right? I think it's pretty cool. I think the pyramid is a really interesting addition to such an not ancient, but old establishment within France. But, it's kind of like a sore thumb. Like, here we have not just one, not just this big old boy right here, but we have this tiny little bitch right over here. Just modern art interspersed with this magnificent thing you're beholding. Does that make sense? How dare you pronounce syllables, says Jolander. This is not French. No, obviously not. Yeah. That's the thing about the French language, is that half the consonants that they put into their words are not actually pronounced. And that's so frustrating, because if you've never spoken French before, you do not know. But anyway, I digress. So continuing on with the Louvre. This is the outside of the Louvre. This is also from the bus, but this is actually when we went to the Louvre. You can't even tell that there's a difference in day because it's such shit outside. I'm sorry. I can't control the weather. The weather. Jesus. But for those of you who are unaware, the Louvre is the largest art museum in the entirety of the world, and that's because it is an art museum within an old palace in France. And the French, if you didn't know, like their things to be bigger and better than everyone else's. Which is funny. Should I do the thing when you guys donate where I switch camera angles? Like this? Can you see me? All right, I will. Thank you, Evolved Potato, for the donation. Do the French fly a white flag to the French? Do the French fly a white flag next? Shut the frick up, Google! I'm not asking you. Jesus, scared the shit out of me. Sorry. Do the French fly a white flag next to the French one? It seems like the thing the surrender monkeys would do. They do not. I'm sorry to say. I'm sorry to disappoint, but that is not the case. Okay. So back to the Louvre. Largest art museum in the entirety of the world. The French, they like to make their things bigger and better. And as you can see, there is a distinct absence of the white singular flag here that is supposed to denote the surrender monkeys. But we will continue on. I took this picture because I thought it was pretty cool to observe the facade of the palace itself, because this wasn't just one section of the palace. This was every part of the palace. It was all of the palace, decorated obnoxiously and ostentatiously so, in an effort to kind of show off the wealth and the grandioseness of the French. So, how many statues of a chicken did you see? I don't recall, actually. Ooh. I'm sorry to say, but we will carry on. This is the shot of both the Louvre and the pyramid, actually, from the basement of the Louvre, or the underneath area of the Louvre when we had entered inside of it. I just took it because I thought it was pretty cool, and we will continue on. Now, not many people know about this, but a few years ago, the French had discovered the original foundations of the palace that had stood where the Louvre currently does now. Because, believe it or not, the French used to have an existence that was not based entirely around ornate decorations. And this is the remains of that. Here you go. You can actually see we're in the moat here, and you can see the different towers, both here and here, which, by the way, you're not allowed to touch. My professor went to show us something on the side of the wall, which I will be showing you in a moment, on the side of the foundations of the old palace. She got yelled at by our tour guide, unfortunately, for touching the walls, even though they are stone. Yeah, but I digress. So you can actually see we are inside of the moat of what used to be the old palace. And that was pretty cool, I thought. Not a lot of people, as far as I'm aware, know about this. It's a relatively new exhibition, and I thought it was pretty cool. Like, as opposed to the Mona Lisa, this is shit that I think that they should be advertising. But that's just me. Carrying on, so this is the siding, the face of the wall that we just saw, and the reason why I took this picture is because my professor, she went and made a point of showing us, actually, because this was before there was like actual writing, letters, but people wanted to sign their works, and so you can actually see in the stone facing of the wall little shapes where people have carved not their initials, but like a somewhat of a signature, their symbol, the thing that represents them, into the facing of the brick that makes the outer wall, which I thought was pretty cool. And so did my professor, which is why she pointed it out and got yelled at for it subsequently. But it is pretty cool. So if you ever go to see the foundations at the Louvre of the old palace, definitely check that out. Carrying on. So we had a tour guide. And as one does when one goes away to a different country to be a tourist. The tour guide, especially at the Louvre, because there are so many works of art within this art museum, obviously, you could stay there for several weeks and still not have seen everything. So what they do is they kind of take you on a highlight reel tour of the things that people definitely want to see because they're the most famous. And obviously the Mona Lisa, the Nike, the Treasury Room, the Venus de Milo, they're all on this list, right? Because that's the famous things that people always want to see. And for whatever reason, think that that's everything that everyone wants to see. But no, I wanted to see the foundations, even though I didn't know that they existed until we actually got there. But, that's the kind of shit that I would totally want to see, but they don't advertise it. Sorry, I'm salty. But this was one of those things. And this is a replica of the Chryselephantine statue, cult statue of Athena. And I recognize it because your girl gave a report about that a couple years ago when she went to Greece. And that was her assignment, to give a report on the cult statue of Athena, which, by the way, does not exist. But I gave that report the last time I did one of these travel streams, and I say, it turned out very well. But I was super hyped about it when she was giving us the lecture on this statue, and I was like, I could give this better, bitch. Anyway, the other thing about French culture, or just France in general, is that they have rules in place for tour guides where if you are not licensed by the state, you are not allowed to give any information while in a public space, or not a public space, but one of these kind of spaces, about anything. You are not allowed to tour guide if you're not licensed. You will be fined. It's actually a thing, which is unfortunate. And that's what happens when you don't have freedom of speech laws. But what are you going to do? It's the French. No one's perfect. Least of all the French. But I digress. Carrying on, they take us through the highlight reel, and obviously we see the Venus de Milo. This is supposed to be representative of the goddess Venus, the Roman goddess, which is the Roman equivalent of the goddess Aphrodite in Greek mythology in the pantheon. And the reason why we know this, and I asked this specifically because I wasn't 100% sure how they would know this. Reason being is because statuary, specifically of women, are not allowed to be naked, at least during this time. You do not see any other statuary representation of women as being naked. You see plenty of male naked forms, but you do not see women. The only women that you see, with the exception of Venus or Aphrodite, the goddess of love, sex, beauty, whatever. And so I thought that was pretty cool. Similar to, if you go back to the cult statue of Athena, the way that you know it's Athena is because she's decked out in battle armor. She's got her aegis on her kind of breastplate, which is what this thingy is. I actually can zoom in on this, which is what this thingy is right here. That's how you know that that's what that is. And that's pretty typical in statuary in ancient Roman Greece, which I happen to be a big fan of. I don't know if you guys know this, but I am. By the way, I have like 2 more of these that I'm ready to drink and, pop the cap off of during this. Continuing on, going off of the Venus de Milo. So we walked through the rest of the palace, and I have a lot of shots that are similar to this, of just kind of reliefs on the ceilings of the palace. And I take them because I think that they're super interesting to look at. They're not the greatest quality because I'm super far away and I'm taking this off of a phone camera. If I had a better camera, then you would be getting super great quality photos. But I don't, unfortunately. So you get this. But I still think that it captures the majestic beauty and the ornate nature of the ceiling decor of the French palaces, which I think are the coolest thing about the French palaces. You'll see why as we continue on this presentation. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out and we're going to carry on. I just took this. I don't remember the significance of it specifically, but I do remember passing through because I just do. But this is on the way to see the Mona Lisa. We walked past the Nike of Samothrace, or the Winged Victory, which I'm about 90% sure there is a replica of, or at least the original version of, in Greece that I saw, because I have a picture of it. I swear to God I do, of this exact thing in my Greek photos. But yeah, and if you're unfamiliar, the goddess of victory is named Nike, not Nike, as people would have you believe, but not everyone took ancient Greek in college, Weebo, so it's fine. Don't worry about it. Just let the people mispronounce the word Nike. It's fine. I'm not super salty about it, but I am. But I'm moving on. I thought it was pretty cool. I got a nice picture of it. You're going to see a theme here, and that is as minimal people as I can physically get into a shot. And the reason why is because I have absolutely no interest in other tourists in my photos for when I do this kind of thing. But unfortunately, I could not move this person. Still super salty about it, because it would have been a fantastic shot had that just lone silhouette not been there. And that was a really annoying thing about Paris too, is the amount of people there. I kept thinking to myself, and this is going to sound bad because of what's currently going on right now, but I kept thinking to myself, you know what? We need a new plague just to kind of thin the herd a little bit, as it be. And little did I know, when I got back, we would have an outbreak of coronavirus. So go, Weebo! You curse the internet and the world and everyone. Apparently, I started the virus. So this is the entrance into probably one of the most obnoxiously decorated rooms that I've ever visited in my entire life. And it's actually the room that houses all of the crown jewels and treasures of the royal family that have been either recollected, saved from perdition and destruction, or just found, I guess. And there are a lot. There is a lot. I got a few pictures of a few things. For instance, we have, oh, well, that's Louis the 14th, the Sun King. We're going to learn more about him later. Don't worry. But we have a whole bunch of these gorgeous jewels that are just sitting in cases collecting, well, not dust, because there's no actual exposure to the outside world for which then, with which that they can collect dust. So they're just kind of sitting there looking pretty, being useless. Kind of like me. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Although upon like close inspection, you can actually see that the craftsmanship is not perfect. Reason being is because, or the reason I noticed that is because I'm more used to seeing things that are a little bit more, you know, I'm making hand motions, but you get it. You get it. Things are more pristine nowadays. We have more fine working tools with which to actually craft things that are pristine. Whereas the crown jewels in these shots are, they have imperfections. You can actually see them. For instance, the crown, this is the actual like crown. You can see it's a little bit crooked, you know? It's not like straight up. You can actually see there's like a tilt there. It's not even quite. I noticed that. I don't know why. I just pay obnoxious attention to details like that. It sticks out to me. But I did get some images of other things as well. Here's another crown for coronating purposes, you know, as one has. This, I took this because this is the Polish eagle. And I am Polish. I just thought it was super cool. And it's beautiful. Very beautiful. Nana Jones will appreciate it when I show her this slideshow show. Anyway, so there's nothing super significant about this hallway. Nothing in it that would, you know, well, to my knowledge, nothing in it that would breed any substantial feeling about it. It's just kind of the hallway before you get to what is going to be the room that holds the Mona Lisa. I took it because I thought it was significant to what we're about to see, which is, oh, come on. I ordered everything so pristine. Wait, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Mother of fuck. Okay, hang on. Sorry. There we go. Slight hiccup. We're back on track. This is the room that houses the Mona Lisa. And if you were here on Cocktail Hour a few weeks ago, you'll notice that I was not wrong. There is an obnoxiously large blue wall that is supposed to be the precursor to what is going to be the Mona Lisa when you see it. There's a nice long zigzaggy line here in the distance. Well, I can't zoom in on this one because I got this off the internet. This is not my picture. But I wanted to establish exactly the kind of shot that I was talking about when I was illustrating for you verbally what is going on in this room for the Mona Lisa. So this is the room that houses the Mona Lisa. That is the wall upon which the Mona Lisa sits. You can actually see in the distance the Mona Lisa, which y'all have seen millions of times before because it's the most famous painting in the world. But it's got a long-ass line zigzagging all the way to it and a whole bunch of people in it, and you gotta wait 15 minutes to actually get up close and personal to it. But I was so uninterested in this painting. So uninterested. Because it's so overhyped, you know? Everyone talks about how you have to see the Mona Lisa when you go to Paris, right? It's famous. Oh my God, obviously. But I was just so over it, you know? And I don't mean to sound like one of those hipster types that hates the mainstream or whatever, but it's just like, look at that. Look at that. That's the most famous painting in the world, and you've put it on just a blue wall with a bulletproof glass in front of it and just a line of people. Like, really? And what's even more rich, right? And you got a preview of this already. But right across from the Mona Lisa, no one is paying attention to this big badass boy right here. You see this? Do you see this? This is a big boy. This is a very big boy. Also not my picture, but I wanted to illustrate this simple, just nonsense for you right here. Like, it's a massive painting, takes up the entire wall. It's probably 4 people tall, and I don't know, like 6.5 Gabriel Iglesias is wide. I don't know. But this is right across from the Mona Lisa, and no one gives a fuck about it. I don't know anything about it except for maybe what's written on that plaque over there, but I didn't read it because it's in French. I'm not super salty about it. So, continuing on. You're going to see this picture not once, but actually twice within this presentation. But this was on the wall in the kind of section that talked about the French Revolution era. This is the coronation of Napoleon Bonaparte. And you can actually see Napoleon taking the crown off of the bishop, from the bishop, and crowning himself and maybe his wife. No, he's crowning himself right now. As one does when one is a mini dictator. It's important. It's famous. El Presidente DMCS. I went to France and don't speak French. How dare they? Question mark. Weebo Jones 2020. Yep, exactly. You right. This is important because it's technically a lie. Napoleon did crown himself, I'm pretty sure. At least I don't think that that's inaccurate. The inaccurate part lies around right there. That lady sitting right there in the observation box. That's Napoleon's mom. She was not actually there at his coronation. I think she had refused to go because he didn't want to invite one of his brothers or something. As one does when one is a mini dictator. You just, fuck that boy. I will crown myself. And also not invite my little brother. It'd be like that sometimes. But she was not there at his own coronation. And so he insisted to the artist of this painting, which I can't remember the name of. Sorry. He insisted that she be included in this memorialization of this event in history. And so here she is. And she will reappear in another painting that is an exact replica of this later in this presentation. Continuing on. This is important. Also within the same hallway that was kind of Revolutionary era related. This is, and the actual name of the painting, I want to get this right. The Death of Marat. Now, Marat was a revolutionary during the French Revolution, lived his life in a bathtub, dictating and edicts and certainly little, you can kind of see he's writing something here. Whomst the fuck knows what it is. It's in French, and it's not clear enough. But he's writing something, but he was one of the more radical of the revolutionaries who lived from his bathtub, and he was actually murdered by a woman by the name of Charlotte Corday, who was also beheaded after this. She made no attempt to escape, but she was part of an aristocratic family, and obviously we know what happens to aristocratic families within the French Revolutionary time period. They get dead. This is the death of Marat, and Marat, it was significant because this was the first time that a woman had actually done something significant during the French Revolution that was against the French Revolution and kind of showed to the revolutionaries that, hey, maybe we should not accept the women's help as much anymore because they'd be dangerous. I don't know. Just a thought. Up until this point, the French revolutionary women had been at the forefront with the bread riots and the taking down of the Bastille and the storming of Versailles. They were integral to a lot of the pre-reign of terror nonsense that was going on. But we'll also get to that when it is that we get to Versailles. I'm going to take a drink break. Eric Prostate, that is correct. He lived in a bathtub because he had a skin condition that kind of kept him there. And so that's why he's dead in his bathtub with writing stuff. It's a very famous painting. If you studied the French Revolution, You know this painting. Continuing on, more pictures of our boy Napoleon. Here's him in, I think, Egypt, doing his conquering thing. More pictures of our boy Napoleon doing his conquering thing. I just thought that they were cool because Napoleon, for whatever reason, my professor decided to cut off our learning experience about Napoleon or about the French Revolution right at Napoleon. Like we read about it. I read all of that chapter. But we didn't talk about it. And that was a great loss, I think. But, you know, it's her prerogative. She can teach the class however she wants. It's fine. I am live, Spirit Thief. I am reading chat. Continuing on, so the next thing that we visited after the Louvre was the L'Arc de Triomphe, which was an experience for many reasons. I'm not going to lie. So it's located actually at the apex of the 16th, 17th, and 8th arrondissements, which is another word for district. Again, it's at the center of the it's at the west end of the Champs-Élysées. I have no fucking clue. And it's the center of the Place Charles de Gaulle. Butchered French. Oopsies. I'm getting pizza after this. I don't know how long this is going to go, but it's going to go as long as it needs to. Because I'm not doing a part 2. Anyway, the reason why this was built, actually, initially it was supposed to be a monument to Napoleon. But after Napoleon was not the president of the world anymore. No, after Napoleon was overthrown, it got kind of repurposed as a war memorial for the soldiers who had died during the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars. And so that's what it remains to be today. And actually, if you're looking, this is the view from inside the 12 lanes of traffic that overlooks, I'm pretty sure. No. This is the view from the street that overlooks the actual, not overlooks, but looks out at the rest of the districts. You see, because there are like 12 lanes of traffic between you, like you and the rest of the city, and the Arc de Triomphe. You have to actually go underground to get to the Arc because there's so many cars that could hit you and kill you and leave you dead. Thank you, Irv. Champs-Élysées. Got him. Continuing on. Okay, so once you get into the actual arch, you have to climb an obnoxious amount of stairs. There is one lift, but it's for the handicapped. Unfortunately, otherwise I probably would have taken the lift, but it was an obnoxious amount of stairs. I finally got to the top, and I had to sit down and die a little inside because it was so bad. I think I climbed maybe 17 flights in just going up the Champs-Élysées, or the Arc de Triomphe. That was, it was a bad experience. But once you get there, you have to climb more stairs and then get to the top of the arc, which this is the view from the top of the arch. Just overlooking the city, looking at the Eiffel Tower. You can see there in the distance. I actually went and I got, did I not get more shots? Oh, I didn't. Fuck. I walked around the whole of the arc, but this, I think, was the most beautiful, is the reason why I only had this shot as opposed to every other shot. But it gives you a good idea of how big the city is and how long that stretch of road goes. Oh my god. Aren't you short enough to be handicapped, says Evolved Potato? You know, I'm not short enough to be handicapped. Thank you very much. Bye. Anyway, so on my way back from the arc, I was still dead tired, but I decided that I was just going to walk back to the hotel instead of literally anything else. This is Notre Dame that I passed by on my way back to the hotel. You can see the facade is quite famous, not gonna lie. And there's me. It's one of the few pictures you'll see of Weebo while she is in Paris, because For whatever reason, I'm not a big fan of taking pictures of myself while I travel. Maybe that will change when I start traveling with boyfriend, but I make no promises. I really just prefer the sights to just take a picture of them and then go. Who photobombs their own stream? I do. I am not wearing a kimono Irie prostate. I am wearing a shirt. So the next day, we went to... Actually, you know what? We're going to take a drink break. I'm going to grab my alcohol out of my cooler because ain't no shit like warm beer. All right. Let's get this party persisting. Now, put the lid back on this bitch. Good. All right, we're ready to take on Versailles, which was its whole thing. Are we really only on day 3? We're really only on day 3. This is January 14th, 2020 that we are talking about. This is also not my picture. Reason being is because I can't get aerial views of... I can't get aerial views of Versailles. Sorry, but I'm not God. No, Notre Dame was not still smoky smelling irate prostate. It was fine. This is an aerial view of the palace. It's not even all of it. There's like wings that you're not getting, but we didn't go into them. We just kind of stuck to the main little U shape because reason being is because the Sun King himself, King Louis XIV, constructed it so that like the main U would be relegated to just the royal family, whereas the wings would be relegated to all of the nobility because King Louis liked to keep a close, careful eye on his rowdy subjects who had staged a rebellion when he was a child. And he wanted to do a massive power move, essentially, that kind of emasculated his rowdy nobility. The noble class, the second estate. Yes, the second estate. And so he forced them all to move to Versailles and hold court there daily. We're going to get into agonizing detail about that, unfortunately, because the tour guide went into agonizing detail about that, and so must we. You're going to learn a thing. This is the front of the facade of the Versailles Palace. We did not go in the first floor front door, actually, by the way. Unfortunately, that's not how that works. They take you on a walking tour that kind of just goes in a U. At least that's the way that we went on it. I'm not saying that that was the best way. I think that it could have been more ideal, but that's just me. This is the statue at the front entrance of the Palace of Versailles. Gates, specifically. This is a statue of King Louis XIV, who is a very important player in our Versailles adventures, in fact. So important that he built the goddamn palace. It used to be a hunting lodge. Did you know that? And after the rebellion fell and he decided he didn't want to be in Paris anymore, he decided to move all of the capital of Paris, or France, to little hunting lodge / area that was Versailles, and an entire city was built up around this area as a result, and it remains to this day. And all because King Louis decided he wanted to build a palace there. So this is the inside of the Herculean room of the Palace of Versailles. So if you're following with me, we're starting at the right end of the U, not quite going into the little wing off to the side, but the right end of the U. This is the Herculean room, and off the Herculean room, well, we don't care about that picture, but off the Herculean room is the, now let me get this right, the Royal Chapel, which is currently under renovations. So if you go there right now, you are going to see a lot of construction-y type nonsense, which kind of detracts from it, but this is the inside of it. It's still beautiful, I think. This is about as close as I could get a picture of it, and as full a picture as I could get of it without getting anyone else in the shot, so you're welcome. My computer's still... Don't you fuck... Don't... We're good. Disaster averted. Is it really 50 minutes into this live stream? Hot damn. I'm gonna need to take a pee break. It's fine. So we're moving on to, I believe this is the Room of Abundance. The Room of Abundance is important because it acts as a refreshment room for all of the court of Louis XIV, who he is entertaining, but at the same time is kind of gearing up to ask him for a favor, because that's what you do with the king, is you ask them for permission to marry, for a thing, for a stuff you really want, because you're at his beck and whim. And if the king wills it, then the king wills it. That's life at Versailles. It's really stuffy, really boring, not a lot of fun, but you have to go through all the hoops and literal obstacles to get anything out of the king, to actually be productive as a person at Versailles, as a part of the court. This is the Room of Abundance, where refreshments were had and people would socialize and maybe try to make life a little less bleak at Versailles. Because even though it's obnoxiously decorated and ostentatious and it's just massive, it ain't all it chalked up to be. It's kind of blah. Not gonna lie. You can dress something up as pretty as you want to. That doesn't make it have personality. Sorry. That's kind of a running theme of Versailles, is that you can be as obnoxiously ostentatious as you want to. That doesn't make it shit. So this is the Venus room and is part of the entrance to the king's apartment. I'm pretty sure. If I'm not mistaken, that's the Venus room. Yep, the Salon de Venus. And that's actually, if you couldn't put it together already, that is a statue of King Louis XIV being King Louis XIV. Obnoxious, ostentatious, doing a total power move. The only person having fun at Versailles at the height of court at the height of court at Versailles is probably King Louis, and that's only because he is the absolute man. He's actually a very interesting character to study throughout history. I'm not gonna lie. The Sun King is one of personality. But I digress. Like I said, it's the entrance to the king's apartment, or it serves as the entrance to the king's apartment. And it's another one of those kind of hoops that you have to jump through before you actually get to the king in order to ask him your favor. And like I said, there are so many of these ceiling pieces that I've taken pictures of that are kind of to illustrate the ornate nature of the palaces and the different areas of Versailles, or just in general France. And continuing on. Nope, I gotta zoom out completely. There we go. This is inside of the Mars room, and you know that because it's red, obviously. But that's another wall painting. I can't remember why it's significant. I think, no, it's not the Last Supper, or it's not supposed to depict anything Jesus related, I don't think. I just took it because I thought it was pretty cool. And to give you an idea of the rest of the scope of the room, yeah, the Salon de Mars. This is the size. I took this picture because this is the absolute madness that we are dealing with here. Look at the size of the freaking fireplace. Just look at it. Look at the freaking logs in there that you can burn. That's like half a tree right there. That is half of a tree. Even the interior of the fireplace, like the back wall where you're not supposed to give a shit about anything, has the freaking crest within it. Just, wow. I digress. Pretty art is pretty. You're not wrong, Cynical Lindsay. You're not wrong. Continuing on, I'm like 90% sure that that's also Louis XIV, because, you know, when you're rich and the king, have as many pictures of yourself as you want. Not gonna lie, I've been inspired by King Louis XIV, the Sun King, to have at least if I can't get a bust made of like my head, or like a statue made of my entire person, I will at least have a painting of myself. Just, you know, decorate the wall of my house interior, just so that I live on. It'll be worth a fuck ton, I hope. I have been inspired. It's gonna happen. I just need to find the right artist. And I think this is Louis the 16th. They all blur together. There's so many Louis. There are 16 Louis, if not 17. There's so many. But I believe this is Louis the 16th still in the Mars room. Yes, because that is Marie Antoinette. And we're going to talk a little bit more about her later as well. Marie Antoinette was the wife of King Louis the 16th, who was the king that reigned just as the French Revolution was occurring. He was actually beheaded by the revolutionaries at the time, and so was his wife. But we will get into that a little bit more later. This is the it's the royal bedchambers, aka the Mercury room. Now, what's interesting about this is that this isn't actually where he slept. King Louis XIV. He would sleep in his royal bedchambers, but this was kind of the room wherein he would just kind of chill out right before it was that everyone in court was supposed to retire. And the people at court, what they were supposed to do is come into the royal bedchamber, bid the king good night in the absolute power move of power moves, bid the king good night, and then they could go to their own personal apartments and retire for the evening. But not until they had said goodnight to the king. You have to say goodnight to the king. Show respect to your king. Say goodnight, motherfucker. Yeah. That's what the purpose of this bedroom is. Sole purpose. Just for the king to be like, all right, it's nighttime. Bye-bye. We got more pictures over here on the wall of just fancy people. This is David playing his harp. All that jazz. This is an ornate grandfather clock that I think is pretty cool. I totally want a grandfather clock when I get older. More Sun King action. This be Louis the 14th. You can tell because he looks perpetually salty about the rebellion that went on when he was a child, when he was a young lad. This is Louis the 16th. You can tell because he's a little bit thick. He's a little bit thick in the chin. Just a little bit. Tuck me in, bitch. I'm the king, says Irving Twin. Spirit Thief says too much gold in my opinion. You right. Here's more Sun King action. He's riding in on a horse. This is actually the war room. Yeah, because we already went. Yes, it's preceded by the war room. Because we're just about to enter. So that would have been. That over there would have been the royal bedchambers. You can see because it's red. This is the war room, which precedes directly the Hall of Mirrors. This is the famous hall that everyone talks shit about. This is where the Treaty of Versailles was signed after was it the Second World War? I think it was the Second World War. This was where the treaty was signed after the war, one of the world wars, and it used to be, all of those mirrors used to be windows because this hall didn't used to exist, but this is where people would kind of just chill and dance and whatever during a party, as one does when one has a party, is they chill in the room with the mirrors so that they can have a gay old time. Excuse me, I burped. But I only had the one picture of it, and the reason is because there are so many goddamn people here. So many people. I couldn't get a nice shot, and I didn't want to. Thank you. It was the Great War, the First War, the First World War. But yeah, I'm super salty about not getting like an actual picture of the Hall of Mirrors with no one in it. Life goals, guys. Life goals. But we're moving on to the council study. This is the council study, and as you can see, it's a little bit less ornate, a little bit less decorated, but it's still pretty, decorated for someone's house. The walls are lined with gold, the freaking tablecloth, freaking gold, but the ceilings are less flouncy. There's less there, obviously. You can tell. It's less. And I appreciate it. This is more my speed. No, this is better, I think. Just my opinion. And there's another angle of it. You can actually see where it says over here, the council study. And this nice wooden floors. I'm a big fan of hardwood floors, guys. Not gonna lie. I'm a big fan of this desk too. Not gonna lie. This I could rock this. If anyone was thinking about getting me a birthday present, it's coming up. Just saying. Hope you're thinking about me, somebody. Okay, I digress. This is the council study. This is the view of the outside of the palace from the council study, actually. And I thought that it was just a nice view. So I took a picture of it. And so here we have it in the slideshow. This is where the king's bedchamber is. A little less obnoxious. Still obnoxiously decorated, but a little less obnoxious. You can see the nice not poster, but like the bed with the square stuff, and the curtains are drawn, and the little chairs everywhere, and the decor is there. It's gold lined, obviously, because if you're a French king, you can't not have something be gold lined. Yes, irate prostate. There's decorative and then there's garnish, and I'm not quite sure which one this is. I took this picture because I thought this was pretty cool, For whatever reason, French kings have a heck of an obsession with mythology. That's probably because mythology is cool. It's awesome. Moving on, though, this is the Queen's bedchamber, specifically Queen Marie Antoinette. This is where she woke up when it was that the revolutionaries stormed her door and brought her and the rest of their family, including the king, to the Tuileries Gardens. Well, not Tuileries Gardens, but the Tuileries Towers, to be prisoner for the time until it was that King Louis XVI was to be beheaded. And you can actually see there is an outline of a door right here that's supposed to serve as the entrance to, I think, her closet, her back closet. Because obviously you can't live or sleep in the same room as your clothes. Pfft, that's preposterous for royalty. But that's fine. That's Marie Antoinette. If you're unfamiliar with her, she's going to become very familiar in the next... What day is it? In the next day when we talk about her fall from grace. But she was originally an Austrian princess. Princess? Yes, an Austrian princess who was sent over to marry King Louis XVI of France, I think when they were both 15. So this is prior to when he was actually king. It's actually interesting, the story of how that came to be. Initially, King Louis XIV had a son who had another son, and then he died. And that son actually became Louis XV, who was a little bit of a promiscuous whore, not gonna lie. But Louis XV also had a son who had a son, and then he died. And that son had died before... Louis XV had a son who had a son, so he had a grandson, and that first grandchild died. The second grandchild, who was not supposed to be king, who had never been groomed to be king, actually was Louis XVI, who became king, instead of his older brother, who passed away. And so the lineage got passed down from Louis XV to Louis XVI. And that's grandfather to grandson kind of jump. So we got like one generation that got passed over, which is fine. But Louis XVI was never supposed to be king initially. He was just supposed to grow up as like the, forgotten prince, half person thing, lord of some random thingy off in the distance, away from Paris, enjoying life as it were. But that didn't happen. And so Louis XVI got thrust into the helm of power when he ought not to have been. Now, from what I've read, Louis XVI was never necessarily like a bad guy, as one would think, he was a bad ruler, certainly. He didn't know what he was doing, but, it happens. But he was not a bad guy. I think at least he wanted to be a locksmith before it was that he actually, or he had an interest in locksmithing or something of that nature, a very hands-on trade, before he was actually thrust into the helm of power. And that love persisted throughout his reign as king. He was never super interested in being king. And so that's part of the reason why France toppled the way that it did. It's part of the reason, not the whole reason. There are many other factors that contributed to the revolution that happened after King Louis XVI kind of fucked up. But we'll get to that as well. One of those things was Marie Antoinette, the way that she was portrayed by the media of France at the time. The spending habits of the royal family was another thing that kind of ticked the people off in the form of, or in the direction of revolution. Marie Antoinette was part of that because she never quite connected with the general populace about them in that regard, if that makes sense. Somewhat disconnected. Yes, you should always groom the spare in case the heir dies. That's why you have 2 children, just in case one of them doesn't work out. This is another view of the bedroom. I took it because it shows you the obnoxiousness of the decor. This is this is not the coronation room. This is just another sitting room. I don't actually have anything to say about this, but you'll notice a preponderance of sitting arrangements in most of the rooms that I show you. And there are a lot of rooms, not gonna lie. Lots and lots and lots of rooms. But I thought it was beautiful. We walked through it. I took a picture of it. So we're going over it. This is another room that we walked through. And look, more seating arrangements. Yay! More ceiling decor. Isn't that just nice? This is, I believe, of the Romans doing a thing, as the Romans are prone to do. Okay, so this painting I do want to talk about. Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette had 4 children, but you only ever hear about the one that died, that caused Louis XVI so much grief, and the one that, well, you don't actually hear a lot about him, but you do hear a lot about the one that died. So, of the 4 children that they had, one of them did not survive infancy. Of those 3 children that did survive, one of them died just in the middle of the States General organizing during a time of crisis in the French nation. And that contributed in part to the mannerisms and behaviorisms of one Louis XVI while he was kind of negotiating with the third, the second, and the first estate while they were having issues. Because that's why they met initially, was because of the economic crisis that was happening in France at the time, due to plagues, due to wars, due to a whole number of issues. The other one, so of the 2 that remain, the boy, I can't remember his name, he was groomed to be heir after the revolution had toppled, but he also passed away. And the only surviving member of the royal family from this point onwards was the oldest girl, oldest female child. She survived her parents, her brothers, all of the family, and she lived on, but she did not sire a child and effectively ended the line. And that was depressing to learn about. No, this is not the Louvre. This is actually the Palace of Versailles. Wow, I was having trouble coming up with that name. We have more ceiling art. Yes, can't get enough of that. The reason why I took this picture is because this is the coronation room. Coronation room is important because it's called the coronation room. Actually, it has the picture of the coronation that I was talking about earlier. It's not an exact replica. As you can see, there are a few differences here, but it's pretty similar to the picture that we saw that was in the Louvre. It does have the inclusion of Napoleon's mother, even though she wasn't there she was not present at the coronation itself. But I took these pictures because I thought it was pretty cool to see these pictures of Napoleon, who was also a staple of French history, doing his Napoleon thing. This is Napoleon in battle. This is more Napoleon doing stuff as an emperor. This is Napoleon before when he was merely a general, in the French nation. But this is him after the fact, and you can actually see the really nice, cool before and after photo of Napoleon. I thought was pretty cool. It was present within the coronation room. I really wanted to show that off when it was that I went through these pictures with you guys. So here we have Napoleon as general, and here we have Napoleon as an emperor, and you can see a vast difference in the two paintings in every aspect. I think you would agree. So, have you met Napoleon Bonaparte yet? Said Gen X Vlogs. In fact, I have not. Unfortunately, we have not had the pleasure of making each other's acquaintance. This is the back of the palace, actually. From a distance, you can see how massive it is in size compared to the humans that are in the picture, I think. And for whatever reason, the French have this disdain for grass, which I found quite strange, because I love grass. I think that it's much better than this nasty gravel nonsense that they had going on everywhere that I walked. But agree to disagree, French. It's fine. Just because I have a disdain for grass does not mean that they did not include it. It just means that you are not allowed to walk on the grass. But these are the grounds of the palace, and you can see actually this is the Latona Fountain. Important because she is also a Greek mythological character. She is the mother of both Apollo and Artemis, the Greek twins, one being of medicine, music, something else I can't remember. The other being the goddess of the hunt. Very important in the Greek pantheon. Yes, Sergeant Wang, we all love grass. Grass is great. Grass is beautiful. And of course, because it's French, it's gold plated, I think. Maybe it's gold, but it's obnoxious. And you can see the palace is actually in the background over here as well. You can actually make out where it is that the chapel is being reconstructed. And the next place that I want to show you, this is also not my picture. I visited in January, and so there are not a lot of blossoms during the month of January. Sorry, but this is the Le Petit Trianon, the little palace. And I gotta say, I found it all the more interesting compared to the Palace of Versailles. And for several reasons. We will get into them. Ooh, that glare. So this is supposed to be, I'm not sure how well you can make this out, but this is supposed to be Marie Antoinette. And Marie Antoinette, we've talked a little bit about her, but Le Petit Trianon was gifted to her by Louis XVI as a kind of like getaway from the rest of palace life at Versailles, of court, as one does. Now, I'm pretty sure. Wait, did I say Aphrodite? I meant Artemis. Pretty sure. Sorry, I'm distracted. Stop distracting me, chat. Gosh darn diddly. The Petit Trianon was kind of like her getaway, like I said, from the rest of the palace life at court. And it was a thing that was gifted to her detriment, because there are a few things that the French press found about the nature of Marie Antoinette at life at court, at the Petit Trianon, at her Hamlet, which we will also be visiting, that were dissatisfactory, not gonna lie. And so we will get into that. This is, I can't remember if this was, no, okay. This was her husband. She had a bust put into the palace of him, her husband Louis XVI, and this was her brother, King of Austria, or Emperor of Austria? No, King of Austria. I thought Helios was the god of the sun. I know he's god of prophecy, but I know that Helios is the god of the sun in Greek mythology, I'm pretty sure. Because he's got the wheel turny thingy that's supposed to represent the sun. So you're going to notice a lot of chairs, a lot of wood floors, a lot of decorative stuff, but it's not nearly as obnoxious as the other rooms that we saw at the Palace of Versailles. And the reason being is because this is not intended as a place to host court. This is intended as a place to host intimate gatherings of friends and close relations. So that's why we see a lot of beautiful decoration, but it's not anything nearly as obnoxious as what we saw in the palace. Certainly we have these wall boards that are painted white, but they're not decorated at every crevice with gold at all. And the reason why is because it's not cost effective to be that obnoxious with your gold. And of course, unfortunately, I couldn't get everyone out of the shot in order to take this shot, but we're walking through the Le Petit Trianon, and we are seeing sitting rooms where people are entertaining guests. And this is a staple of French life that I've come to realize. So much of it revolves around, like, sitting. I'm sorry to say, but sitting is apparently the only thing that French aristocracy ever did. And I'm pretty sure that's probably an across the board thing. Sitting and entertaining, and sitting and entertaining, because everywhere I look, in all of the places that I visited, there are always chairs. This is another bedroom within the Petit Trianon, and you can see that the style of the way that the floor plan is set out, at least the walls, are not nearly as tall, meaning that we are on the second floor, which is less about intimate entertainment of guests and more so about comfort, personal experiences, retiring to your sleep. And look at that bed. That is an interesting looking bed. And no one can sleep on that pillow like that. Come on. Eric the Dead. Weebo likes the word obnoxious, methinks. Yes. I have a question. Would you guys be offended if I took like 20 seconds to take a bathroom break? The beer's starting to get to my gut. Not gonna lie. I got pull the little thingy. What is it called? I have to. Oh God, what is it called? I have to break the seal. That's what it is that I'm trying to say. Fuck. You guys wouldn't be super mad if I took like 20 seconds to take a waz. It's a day bed just for naps. Actually, Irv, no, that's an actual bed. Okay, all right, I'm going to bed. Or I'm going to bed. I'm going to pee. Thank you, Seal 77. I'll be right back. Gosh, I desperately hate to do that to you guys. I'm so sorry, but I really just had to go. I heard someone call crying eye peeing. No, I was too far away for you guys to actually hear me going to the bathroom. This would be a perfect time for Bailey to come and take over the stream. He's not even here. I don't actually know where he went, but I think he's gone for the weekend. Sorry. Mm. Okay. Sorry. I needed to do that. There was no details. No details. Wait, what did you do? What has happened? What did I miss? Did you wash your hands? I did wash my hands. I even sang like a mini happy birthday to myself while I did that. Okay. Carrying on with the stream. Sorry for that brief interruption. I hope it won't happen again, but I make no promises. I'm only human. So we're talking about the Le Petit Trianon, right? Bedrooms. All right. So more fun things to be had. Actually, I got to see what I think is like an 18th century toilet. That's what we are beholding at this moment. Someone took a dump, took a nice deuce in that little box right there, and then someone else had to take it out and throw it out. That's what be. That's how it be. Basically, you have what is the equivalent of an outhouse in-house. Does that make sense? It's nuts to me that there were people who existed before modern plumbing, and I think all the time about what would happen if I time traveled, and then I'm reminded, unpleasantly so, about the fact that plumbing is a relatively modern idea. And that is rather unfortunate. It's rather unfortunate. And of course, we have more sitting, more butt cheek holders. Look at all that. Look at all that. More sitting. And this is, I think, the third floor, actually. This is where unimportant people would hang out. Because, the first floor is for entertaining people. The second floor is for housing those people. The third floor is for all the other nonsense. These are the grounds. This is actually in the style of an English garden. The reason you know that is because it's not perfectly symmetrical like the garden from earlier, which I can go back to. So, okay, if I were to show you an example of what I mean by this is pretty symmetrical. This is a French style garden. This is not. This is a view of the English-style garden of the Petit Trianon from the window of the third floor of Le Petit Trianon. And you actually see a picture of this little pavilion right here, close up, later on in the slideshow, because I made a point of exploring the gardens, the outside world. It's a dangerous place, but I still love it. This is another bedroom. I think it's more comfortable looking than the king's bedroom that we were privy to earlier in this slideshow. Not gonna lie, even though that pillow, my God, that pillow is not comfortable. So the next thing that I want to show you, and it's also something that not a lot of people get a chance to visit on their tour of Versailles, mainly because I don't think everyone knows about this, but I went inside the Royal Opera. This is a view of it from an aerial perspective, which of course I didn't get. So this is obviously one of those pictures that I did not take, but I grabbed from the internet to give you kind of an idea of what that looks like when there's activity. This was my perspective of the theater, of the Royal Opera, which had various shows be put on by Marie Antoinette to visiting people at different points in time. But yes, Le Petit Trianon had its own personal, intimate theater. I think it had housed around 200 people, if I'm not mistaken. So a very, very select few were privy to shows at this theater at different points in time in history. And this is the ceiling, because of course we can't go anywhere in France without getting a picture of the ceiling for posterity's sake. The next place I want to show you on the grounds of Versailles is the Queen's Hamlet. Now, the Queen, I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, was obsessed with the way that peasant life acted. And this is an aerial shot, which of course is not mine, an aerial shot of the grounds of the Hamlet during, I think, the summertime. And you can tell because there's grass everywhere and tree greenness. It's less nasty than when it is that I visited there, which we will get a chance to see, because January is a harsh month, people. Here we have another exhibit of palms being palms, says Risho. You're right, though. You're right. But the hamlet was the queen's idea of what life for the peasantry was like. And here you can actually see, while we were there at the hamlet and exploring it, the general grounds workers were in the lake taking a whole bunch of fish and transplanting or transitioning them to a different area, I think, maybe, because they were catching a lot of fish that were just kind of surfaced, because the level of the lake that you saw in this picture, this area right here, it had gone down significantly to the point where essentially these fish were just beached. And so we had a whole bunch of grounds workers doing the grounds worker thing while we were exploring the hamlet. And a lot of the hamlet houses looked like this. And it's basically just like pretend life for the queen and anyone who she deems worthy of hanging out with her on her off days. The hamlets, there are a number of them, actually. This is another picture of that same hamlet from a distance. But they're like how the queen envisions everyday life to go for the normie person, There's a lighthouse on a tiny-ass little pond thing, by the way. And then there's this hamlet, which I'm pretty sure belonged to the queen, but not gonna lie, I would not mind living there. I mean, look at that freaking thing. That's just beautiful. I kind of want to model my entire house out off of it, like, for the future. Like, we got a balcony over here. We got a nice little walkway over here. Two-parter, like, giant round staircase over here. The aesthetic of this whole thing, I could live there. I would enjoy living there. I'd have a great fucking time living there. 10 out of 10 would live there. All right, have I beaten that horse to death yet? Here's another view of the house from a different angle. I think this is like what I would consider the main entrance of this specific hamlet. I'm 90% sure that this was Marie Antoinette's, because, like, it's the best one that was there. It's the coolest one that was there, so obviously. And then I was talking about that pavilion that I told you about earlier. That's a close-up. If you're wondering why it looks so weird, it's because I have my camera zoomed out all the way. In most of these pictures, actually, that's the case. And that's so I can get the best shot, most in the shot as possible. So carrying on, we're transitioning on from specifically the palace and the grounds of Versailles to something adjacent to Versailles. Now, during the French Revolution, what would happen was the king would meet up with the Estates General in a very specific location. We'll get to that as well, but at this location, actually, you know what? I should have ordered these a little bit better, shouldn't I have? Anyway. All right. You guys won't mind if they're a little bit out of order. So the king would meet with his Estates General. Essentially, it's an assembly of the first, second, and third estates in something akin to what this looks like. This is not my image that I took. This is something that I grabbed off the internet to give you a visual of exactly what it is that I'm about to show you. This was a location constructed specifically for the use of the people of the first, second, and third estates and the king while they were negotiating to save the country essentially from economic downfall. And that was what was supposed to be here, essentially. Like I said, it was a temporary location set up specifically just so that they could discuss the economic turmoil that was happening, but it was essentially right here. This is that location. What is now a parking lot. There is nothing there except for a plaque that memorializes exactly what took place this night or during this time, during pre-revolutionary era. Remember, this preceded the revolution. This is before everything was so radically, to give you a nonverbal explanation. Sorry. This is where they used to meet. And one night, I believe it was June 20th, 1789, the Third Estate was locked out of the Estates General. Why? I can't remember exactly. But they had to find a nice place to meet. And so they decided to go to a tennis court that was on the grounds of Versailles, the city. And that that was the only place that they could meet, the tennis court. And we actually went out of our way to go look for this tennis court, and this is what that tennis court looks like, the inside of. This is where the revolution, I guess you could say, kind of officially began. This is where the Third Estate took an oath to not cease their meetings until they had written France its first constitution. This is where they agreed, too far forward. This is where they agreed not to disband as like a general meeting of people of the Third Estate until they had decided to, or until they had agreed upon a written constitution, which of course wouldn't get done until many, many, many moons later. But that's a whole different story. The tennis court also housed, and this is actually a graphic that I took from Assassin's Creed, but it housed a replica of the Bastille, which was the French prison that existed in Paris before it was taken down by a number of revolutionaries during the time of the Revolution. It is essentially a symbol of nationalism and national authority within France before it was dismantled systematically by the revolutionaries. And today, basically, this is all that remains of it. Just a few cobble or stones that have been carved into shapes that resemble the Bastille. This is a replica, as you can see. It's not very intimidating compared to this, what we see. This is, I believe, something that's from Assassin's Creed. Like I said, it was a prison, but less of like what you would consider a traditional prison and more so like a hotel prison, because the people that were kept prisoner there were high nobles, lords, people of esteem and money and power and land and privilege, and they weren't prisoners, except they were just under house arrest in this nice, lovely little hotel kind of thing. It wasn't that bad from what accounts I could find. And then this is another revolutionary who's doing the nice Nazi salute. I just thought that was pretty hilarious. I think his name is Bailey. I actually don't know who this man is. I just took a picture of it because I was amused by this. Knowing what we know about the French and their relationship to Nazi Germany. But I digress. Now, this is the picture of the famous picture of the tennis court oath, which is formally what it is that they took when they decided to write a constitution. This is that picture, that painting. It's famous, actually, when you study the revolution. And then there's your girl, Weebo. I found Dr. Guillotine, the bust of Dr. Guillotine at the very least, and I took a picture with it. This is one of the other few pictures that I took of myself, or that I had someone take of me while I was in Paris. You're not going to find a lot of these, mainly because I don't have a selfie stick, and I have no interest in taking pictures of myself while I'm traveling abroad. The only reason I take pictures is to do shit like this, what I'm doing right now. Present. But I thought it was pretty cool. Just hanging out with Dr. Guillotine, me and him. And you can actually see how short I am in this picture, I guess. So for those of you who were wondering, that's how short I am. All right, so moving on from the tennis court oath and on from the States General, we are going to Le Conciergerie. Le Conciergerie, which is a Gothic-style architected palace that actually served as a prison for the elite during the French Revolution. And it's so interesting, in fact. Here's another view of it from when I was walking up. And then this is just kind of a replica of the actual layout of the palace, including Sainte-Chapelle, which we will also get to right here. That's what Sainte-Chapelle is. But the rest of the palace, it used to be the royal palace before the French got and decided that they were too good for Gothic architecture and simpleness. And this is actually the interior of it before they put all the exhibitions inside of it. So obviously not my picture. I took it off the internet. But I wanted to give you an idea of exactly what the interior of La Conciergerie looked like. The reason why the Conciergerie is significant to our studies of the French Revolution is because Marie Antoinette, after her husband was executed, was held at Le Conciergerie until her death, actually. Because, like I said, it was turned into a prison during the French Revolution, and this is the room that she was actually held in. Also, not mine. I don't actually think I got a chance to see the inside of Marie Antoinette's personal chambers in the Conciergerie when she was there. It's a replica. That's also not Marie Antoinette, as far as I'm aware. But this gives you an idea of, even in the throes of like pre-execution prisoner terms, she's kind of living it up. She's even got chairs, guys. But yeah, so this is the way that Marie Antoinette lived after she had been denied her fanciness and her palaces and her money and whatnot and her authority as a royal person. Which, I'll remind you, this is what Marie Antoinette looks like at the height of her time in royal position. But after the revolution started, and after she'd been brought from the Tuileries to the Le Conciergerie, this is more examples of life finery and flounces and all manner of obnoxiously ornate shenanigans. I mean, like, look at this. This is a hair boat. This is a boat made out of, well, paper, but it's a replica of a hairstyle that supposedly Marie Antoinette had. After all of this had gone away, this is what we get, right? So we go from this woman right here, who looks prim, proper, flounced to the nines, and just all around elegant, to this dead on the inside looking motherfucker bitch. Quite an adjustment, quite a transition, don't you agree? This is what Marie Antoinette looked like on her way to the guillotine. This is what she wore. Supposedly, this is actually the painting of the painting. No, this is the painting of the painting of the painting that I just showed you. This is a painting of the painting of, like, the actual act of the painting of this painting that I have just shown you. Sorry. Okay, we're going too far. I thought it was interesting. It's jarring, to say the least, that you can go from such a high standard in life to such a low point in your existence. Such a low point that, in fact, you were executed by the people that you've come to be the queen of at some point. It's a little depressing, all things even considered, to have that be your reality, to be your legacy. Not gonna lie. But it happened, and it's history. We can't deny it, and it happened all at the bequest of this lovely man right here. Familiar with the man, his name is Maximilien Robespierre. It's another revolutionary that was very important to the revolution at the time. I think I have... Oh, I do. All right. Okay, cool. I have lovely notes about Robespierre. It's actually interesting because Robespierre, at the very end of the Reign of Terror, he was a fantastic orator, someone who could convince the masses of his perspective in any point in time. But during the Reign of Terror, he was especially dangerous in convincing people to think in his way, to be moved in his will, if you will. But it was not to last forever. At a certain point in time, he got too big for his britches, and the rest of the revolutionaries decided that, as a result, he had to be put down. And so, the revolutionaries, doing as they will, made an attempt to arrest Robespierre after they had humiliated him in the general court. Not court, but the general area that was reserved for trial and discussion. can't exactly remember what it was that it was called, but or who they were specifically, but his comrades, his peers, in tradition with political turmoil, especially in something as bloody as the Reign of Terror, had him arrested, or they tried to arrest him. But in the throes of the arresting him, he actually ended up shooting himself, but not dying. He shot himself in the face and actually shot his jaw clean off. Or not clean off, it was very messy. He shot his jaw off and lived for a few days before he was eventually executed by the guillotine. But they wanted to keep him alive for as long as necessary for him to actually be put in front of the populace so he could be guillotined. Because how else do you send a message to political opponents other than by guillotining the man who was not the father of the revolution, but pretty damn close, you know? So that is the tragic, but not so tragic, because let's be honest, he put a lot of people in the grave end of Maximilien Robespierre. And I mentioned that I visited Sainte-Chapelle as well, which is close to, near on the grounds of the Le Conciergerie. So Sainte-Chapelle is famous because it is, in fact, a Gothic Christian chapel intended to house specifically important Christian relics, such as, I'm not sure about how accurate this is, the crown of thorns of Christ, if you're familiar with that story in the Bible. But more to the point, it's famous for its collection of stained glass windows, as you can see here in this picture. I tried to get as good an image of it as I could, but obviously it doesn't do it justice, especially on this day of all days. It's beautiful in the sunlight specifically. And there are entirely too many stained glasses for me to actually just accurately go through and depict exactly which one depicts what. But you know that stained glasses traditionally in churches represent different stories from the Bible. So if you have the time and you have the inclination to go visit Sainte-Chapelle and observe the stained glass in the collection that it has, I would encourage you to do so. But I digress. This is more of the inside of Sainte-Chapelle. I just took this because, it seemed interesting. They don't let you go up all the way to the little, I think that there are further, there is an area that you can go up here, but they don't let you go up there, unfortunately. But this is the other direction of the stained glass windows. Again, equally beautiful. Gothic architecture. The next place that we visited this day was Invalides. Les Invalides, which is the burial place, the final resting place, not the burial place, but the final resting place of Napoleon Bonaparte. And it also serves as a military museum for, specifically the Second World War, is a large attraction off to the side of the tomb of Napoleon, but it is significant, I will say. So here's some more images coming up on the dome of Les Invalides, and more pictures, a little bit more clear an image of that. Excuse me. And then here is the interior of the dome of Invalides. And you will quickly come to find that the tomb of Napoleon, even though he was a very small man, supposedly, for the time, actually, the story is that man surrounded himself with an imperial guard of over 6 foot men. And so, as a normal average size, I think 5'7" man at the time, everyone else seemed a little bit taller, and so he gets remembered in histories as being relatively short, when in fact he was not short. Even though we have this perspective of Napoleon as being a short man, his death certainly has been memorialized as larger than life, as you can see. The little brown thing in the middle here, this is the man's tomb. Even though he was cremated, his ashes are retained in this gigantic ass thing right here inside this little bowl surrounded by no less than 12 angels in a dome that is this large. And I just have to remark on the fact that, guys, I hope you remember when I pass on from this world that I expect nothing less than this kind of a burial. But yes, so these are more examples of Les Invalides. And this is a nice little mock-up of it. You will find these sparsed throughout the rest of the presentation. Little things that are smaller versions of the larger things that we are inside of, just to give you an aspect of exactly what it is we are inside of. This is behind the tomb specifically, but then I also went downstairs. Well, not yet, but this is the interior view of the dome itself, as well as the little bowl here that houses the tomb of Napoleon. This is from the bottom, so you can actually go underneath the dome, and you can walk around the circle where it is that Napoleon's tomb is housed. You can't actually go inside this area right here, but you can walk around this area here, and you can actually see what it looks like. And so I did, and here are two like ground level views of exactly what it is you're looking at. These images, I certainly think, don't do them justice. Oh, sorry, not the Rodin Museum yet. These images certainly do not do the tomb justice, because it is so much larger than you actually think it is when you see it on picture. Everything is actually in this image. It doesn't do it justice. Even just standing in proximity of the tomb itself doesn't do it justice. I'm sorry to say. You have to go visit it yourself, and I highly encourage you, if you ever get the chance to, certainly do that. But continuing on, we also visited the Rodin Museum and saw the famous Thinker piece. Not a whole bunch of super relevant French Revolutionary type nonsense to go along with this, except I thought it was pretty cool. We actually did a whole thing as a group, but I can't show you that because I'm not one to dox myself and or my fellow students, so you're just gonna have to trust the fact that we did do that while we were at the Rodin Museum. And then there's Weebo at the obelisk, which was not taken, rather it was gifted to the French people in exchange for a clock by the Ottoman Egyptian Muhammad Ali Pasha in exchange for a clock. So before all of the was Kangs types come at me with a we was Parisian type nonsense, I'm gonna stop you right there, alright? Sorry, that's not how it works. But we're moving on. So that's the 15th of January. We're going on to the 16th of January. And that was when we went to go visit the Chateau Rambouillet, which was another royal palace about 31 miles away from Paris. So that means that we took a bit of a drive, a bit of a detour away in order to visit this lovely chateau, which, by the way, I think was adorable. 10 out of 10 would recommend going, although you should probably stay in the area a little bit longer than just the extent of a tour of the palace itself, because you deserve it. Because we didn't actually stay in the area. I wish we had, because it was a really cool place, and I would have liked to have sightseen the rest of the city, but that's fine. It was the summer residence of French presidents from 1896 to about 2009, but before that, it was a royal palace belonging to not just the Emperor Napoleon, but also the royal family as well, who, by the way, took it from its original owners. King Louis XIII, I believe, he forcefully acquired it from its previous owners, who he told to sell it to him for a price. And, well, once you get an order from the king, you can't exactly say no now, can you? I took these pictures because I thought they were particularly interesting, specifically the marble decor here, which for whatever reason we couldn't explore very much of, but it was of modern use. It was modernized for modern use as recently as 2009 actually, and now it's been restored as a museum, and you can actually see this is where they would hold state dinners, and it's set up as if they still do that even now to this day. Let's see. This was one of those restoration projects that they made. Obviously, you don't expect to see this within a chateau, an old palace. That was a fortified palace at one point in time, but it was repurposed. At least this tower itself, which is where the tower specifically, you can actually kind of see the outside facade of where it is that it's been reconstructed. But the outside facade of this tower is the tower of, I don't know the name of it, but it's a tower that Francis I actually passed away in, and it's of course the French and their bottom holders. It precedes an actual guest area that I thought was gorgeous. Just look at that round room, nice big fireplace with a nice mantle, a table in the center, some chests, and a nice bed. And I don't know, if I were to construct a room, I think that this would be where it is that I constructed my bedroom too. Just because I thought it was interesting. But it does serve as the bedroom of dignitaries that would come to visit. Because remember, the French presidents has used this as a summer home up until 2009 before it was turned into a tourist attraction. This is actually my picture of the outside of Chateau Rambouillet. And I think it's a gorgeous day outside. Look at that. The blue skies. One of the more beautiful days that I was in Paris for. Not gonna lie. I appreciate it profusely. So, after we got back from Chateau Rambouillet, as I said, we only spent a little bit of time there. Unfortunately, I could have spent the whole day there in that area. I and a few other girls made our way to Saint-Sulpice, which is the second largest cathedral within Paris. And you'll see that I am quite correct in my observation there about that. This is my picture of the outside of it, whereas the picture prior was not mine. I took it from the internet just to give you a less silly view. Like, because look at that. That's a little bit weird compared to the other one. But this does give you an idea of the size that we're dealing with here when it comes to Saint-Sulpice. Excuse me. Now, this church is a Roman Catholic church, and it is functioning, actually, as a Roman Catholic church, but it is slightly smaller than Notre Dame. Currently, however, I'm pretty sure that it is the largest functioning Roman Catholic church within the city of Paris, and you can see that that is correct, because look at that. It's huge. I didn't mind getting people in this shot, actually, just because I thought it made it more realistic, more lived in, authentic, if you will. And so continuing on. Now, I mentioned the Tuileries. We did not, unfortunately, get a chance to visit the Tuileries because the Tuileries were dismantled. They no longer exist. However, I did get a chance to visit the Tuileries Garden, and this is the picture that I took at the Tuileries Garden. There's not a whole lot there except for people and trees and gardens and whatnot, so I just took a picture, a selfie. It's one of the rare occasions where Weebo does take selfies abroad. But after that, I went and got ice cream in the shape of a flower with a macaroon, and it was delicious, and I highly recommend it. The shop that I got this from was called Amarino, I think. And they are famous for their flower-shaped macaroon stuffed ice cream. So definitely check it out if you ever get a chance to. I believe they're a chain ice cream shop within Paris, so there shouldn't be a shortage. Hopefully, it was delicious. I think I got a flower flavored ice cream and a chocolate flavored ice cream, but I can't remember exactly. I just remember it being delicious. Oh, no, I think that's cheesecake. That's blueberry cheesecake, and then that's chocolate on the outside. It was good. And then, that evening, I believe it was, we went on is Weebo drunk? I'm slightly intoxicated. This is my second beer of the evening. And it's almost gone. So we went on a boat ride of the river within Paris, and we had dinner and wine and champagne, and it was great. And we had 3 courses, and I highly recommend it. There's no other way to see the Eiffel Tower than on the water at the evening, right before you're about to see it light up. And of course, it's taking forever. Can you actually hear that? I don't know if you can hear that. Hang on, give it a sec. There it is. So what they do, I think 5 minutes after every, like, on the hour clock thing, is they light up the Eiffel Tower with lights, and you can actually see it, and it's quite beautiful in person. Of course, camera doesn't do it justice, unfortunately. But it is beautiful, I will say. And I got that picture. I'm kind of reading chat, Risho. Risho asks, just asking, do you have a problem with Catholicism? I don't have a problem with Catholicism. I just... It's not my speed. I'm not religious. I don't have a problem with it. Just not my thing. So, more pictures of the Eiffel Tower at the evening. Beautiful. That's the only way to see it, honestly. I mean, during the day, it's not as cool. When it's lit up like this, though, oof, 10 out of 10 would recommend. And then after this, we went to a piano bar, actually, and we met this lovely gentleman. I don't know if you guys can hear it. Can you hear it? But we went to a piano bar, and we got to see this lovely man play his piano songs for the rest of us, singing along to all manner of piano songs, while his lady singer person, whom I'm not 100% sure he was actually engaged to, was singing along. You can kind of see her in the back over here. She's just having a great time. She was gorgeous. Thin as a freaking pole, but gorgeous nonetheless. It was a great time. We actually got up on stage. Well, not on stage. A friend of mine got on the piano, and I stood in front of her, and I was holding the lyrics for her as we how do I put it? We sang Piano Man together. Wow, I don't know why that took me so long to get out, but it did. Oh, by the way, the name of that place was Relais de la Chute. La Chute. La Chute. One of so if you Google search piano bars within Paris, it's probably one of the first results that comes off. I think. I'm pretty sure. But it was it's such a great time. Expensive ass fucking drinks, not gonna lie, but a great time nonetheless. 10 out of 10 would recommend. I'd hire that man for my wedding, not gonna lie. I think I will have a piano man at my wedding just because who wouldn't, honestly? Anyway, so the next day, I decided it was time for me to just kind of venture out on my own by myself. So I traversed through Paris all by myself. Me, 5'2", little itsy bitsy me, walking around dangerous old Paris, which, by the way, was not a problem. I went to Paris. Oh, let me try it again. Sorry, the French is difficult. Sadistic atheist. Did you only visit Paris? No, I actually visited Chateau Rambouillet as well. But that was about 31 minutes outside of France. And I visited Versailles, which is I think 5-mile trip outside of France, I'm pretty sure. But I did not get a chance to visit other parts of France. The main focus of my studies within France was didn't you only visit Paris? Sorry, Paris. I only visited Paris aside from Rambouillet and Versailles. The reason why is because we were studying the French Revolution, and a lot of the French Revolution happened either within Versailles or it happened within Paris. So there was really no reason to actually venture outside unless it was that we wanted to. I have no answer for you. There is no otherwise. It just Paris. It was just Paris, aside from those other two places. But I did go off and I ventured out to visit Père Lachaise Cemetery, which is 110 acres of just pure internment. By the way, over 1 million internments in this above ground cemetery, and we are going to kind of cycle through. This is the tomb of Oscar Wilde, and you can kind of see examples of exactly the kind of interments I'm talking about, the little tombs that people would be buried in with their families. In some cases, just simple stone caskets, I guess you could say. But this is the tomb of Oscar Wilde, and it was actually interesting. While I was there, I ventured upon it because I decidedly wanted to visit the tomb of Oscar Wilde, just to say that I had been there. And while I was approaching, a man came out of like the woodwork, just somewhere. I don't know where he came from, but he came up to me, and he's obviously very French, but he's speaking in broken English. He's telling me about how tourists are supposed to kiss the tomb of Oscar Wilde, and he's specifically pointing out the broken pecker on the tomb of the little angel dude that's here on the side. You can't see it because it's not there, but right where you would assume that there is going to be a thing is not a thing because it's been broken off by years and years of just stuff, I guess. But he comes up to me and he's like, "Oh, my wife kisses the wall, my daughter kisses the wall with the makeup, and I kiss the wall with the makeup." And he's trying to tell me to kiss the outside like screen plate thing of the tomb of Oscar Wilde, because that's what you're supposed to do when you visit the tomb. And I'm just like, I'm not putting my lips on that. Sorry, no thank you. And so I walk away. But luckily another American couple had kind of stopped by to distract him from the tomb of Oscar Wilde and myself, and so I was able to make a quick getaway. That was the only time while I was in France that I felt a little bit awkward, threatened, taken aback, because it wasn't really threatening. It was just I didn't know what to make of this instance, to be quite frank. Wow, I am just downing these beers. But yeah, that was the tomb of Oscar Wilde that I visited. And then after that, I decided to take a trip to the Museum de Commando, which doesn't have anything to do with the French Revolution. But the entirety of my trip was actually rather interesting. The Musée de Nissim de... Fuck me! Musée Nissim de Commando is a 20th century mansion built in the style of the 18th century with all of the modern conveniences that you could think of at the time. So that means electricity, that means plumbing, that means the kitchen here that you see, which I fell in love with when I saw it. I mean, whenever I go on a trip to a place to see things about the past, about how people lived, I don't want to see sitting rooms after sitting rooms after sitting rooms, you know? I don't want to see people's bedrooms. I want to see the kitchen. And I'm sorry to say this. I truly am. This is a setback for my gender, I guess. But I want to see the kitchen. I want to see how people actually lived. I want to see the copper-plated pots and pans because, low-key, I'm planning for my future and I want to steal your ideas. I'm sorry, but I'm not. So I got to see the kitchen, I got to see the culinary room, and I got to see the servants' quarter dining room because, of course, when you live in a mansion, you have to have all of these modern conveniences and little things just kind of put away in the corner where your guests and whatnot cannot see those things. I know how to say it, Irving Twin. I'm just drunk, okay? And actually, this is an Ottoman family, so the last name would not be translatable into the French language, because Comondo is not, it's not French. It's an Ottoman last name. The family that built this mansion originally hailed from the Ottoman Empire, and after 6 generations, actually, the story is quite tragic, the way that they ended. I will get into that. But the father, or the grandfather, I guess you could say, he built this mansion with the intention, with the love of the 18th century culture, but like I said, with all of the modern conveniences, and not so much in a very linear way. It's more of in a roundabout way where you can actually experience the living situation of people in a less strict format. So you can walk around this place, and it was quite. I actually enjoyed this place so much more than I did Versailles. And there are a plethora of reasons why, probably because the presentation of the museum was better. The ability to go in and out of places was unencumbered. My curiosity was sated because I was allowed to go into the different rooms at my whim. There were bathrooms, and I could sit in places. So my feet didn't hurt. And I also got to see the dining room and all of the other areas that you don't get quite privy to when it is that you're visiting Versailles, because I don't know, for whatever reason, the dining room and the the china cabinet are not points of interest for people. I don't know why. Maybe that's just me. But you could just walk around it freely for the most part. For instance, this was the butler's quarters. You don't get this anywhere else, really, but you get this here. And you also got a really cool, like, audio thing that went along with the visual aspects of stuff that explained everything to you as you were walking through it. And I found that that was really cool. So if you have a chance to check out the Musée Nissim de Comondo in France, I would highly recommend it. It's probably one of the highlights of my trips that I went on, and I took so many pictures from it because it was so beautifully done. It's a 3-story mansion, by the way, and so the first story is kind of more the servants' quarters, the general meeting area. The second floor is more for entertaining guests and whatnot, but the third floor is more relegated to just the private life of the people that would live there. And this is one of their offices. Actually, you can't go quite beyond the point that I'm at right now, so I tried to get as much into the room as I could, but you can tell it's decorated very well with seating and stuff. I'm a little bit more forgiving of the fact that it's so obnoxious because there's less gold everywhere plating everything, and so I'm thinking that I'm less annoyed by the fact that this is the case. But this is also another sitting room, another not sitting room, office area that the owner of the house used to live in. He would sit here in his office doing businessy type things. He had a picture frame on his desk of his late son, who actually died in the First World War. After the First World War. Died in the First World War after the First World War. Wow, I'm drunk. He died in the First World War, and after the fact, that after he got this news, actually he was devastated, the owner at the time. And so what he did was, because he had 2 children at the time. This was a few generations after they built it and moved here, and he was a banker, and he had 2 children, one of which died in the Second World War. First World War. Fuck me. Excuse me. So his son dies, and he's devastated. As one is. You lose a child, of course you're going to be devastated. You're not supposed to lose children. Children are supposed to lose you. Duh. But he's devastated. And he's rich enough that he has more than one estate, obviously, because that's what you do when you're rich and you have a mansion. You have a second mansion somewhere off to the countryside because you vacation, not in the city. So he gifts the countryside mansion to his daughter, who has a love of horses, so obviously that's what she gets. But the city mansion, the one that his family has built, that's styled in the 18th century, he wills to be turned into a museum, and it actually in the will stipulates exactly how much you're supposed to charge for admission, exactly how things are supposed to be set up, etc., etc. The unfortunate bit about this is that the family ends up dying out because during the Second World War, this is a not just from the Ottoman Empire, but a Jewish family. The daughter does not leave France after the Germans invade France, and as a result, she and the rest of her family are taken to a concentration camp and killed off, and an entire line of people is just completely eradicated from history, completely, except for the fact that the father has decreed, he donated this to the state, but he has decreed that it become a museum to memorialize this to the general public. And here it is today, probably one of the more lucrative sites, I would think, or at least one of the better kept sites of Paris, mainly because it has a nice endowment from the original person who willed it to the state. It's quite a tragic story. If you I don't do it justice, certainly not. I am paraphrasing and summarizing all manner of things because we're already 2 hours in. Can you believe that? Into my trip. And I have, let's see, it's 16th, 18th, 19th, 20th. I get back on the 21st, but like the 20th is when I stop having things. I still have 4 days to go through. All right. We're going to get this done tonight. I promise you that. But I am glossing over things and important stuff. Definitely check it out if you get a chance to. I highly recommend it. It's a very well put together presentation, and the walkthrough is gorgeous. There are spectacles for the library itself, which I was in love with, obviously. I took several pictures of that, and other sitting rooms, obviously, because you can't have a French decored house without sitting rooms, a plethora. But as I said, modern conveniences. We have an actual bathroom with a working bathtub, bidet, sink, toilet, I'm assuming. I can't see it in this picture, but obviously it's there. And more sitting rooms. Actually, I think this is the bedroom of the late son of the owner of this house prior to when it was willed to the state. This is more wartime memorial about the son himself, because there was quite a bit of the book, the tape, the thing that tells you the stuff about the stuff, the audio. Quite a bit of it was dedicated to telling the tale of the son and of the grieving that the father did after he passed in the First War. So that brings me to Hotel de Crillon, which is kind of one of those obnoxious places that I went out of my way to visit because I like being a nuisance. So my professor told me that the only place that you're supposed to get hot chocolate within Paris is at Hotel de Crillon. Sorry. I spent $15 on my hot chocolate there. All right, I want you to know that. She told me that you're supposed to walk through that you're actually supposed to sit in the tea room, which is, this is a picture of that. I didn't actually take the first 2 pictures of the Hotel de Crillon because I didn't think to. For whatever reason, I thought that I wasn't going to present on this, but obviously I am. But she said, when you go there, you have to sit in the tea room. You have to pretend like you belong. Otherwise, they're going to give you weird feelings or weird looks, just in general, because it's a rich people's, essentially, hotel. But you have to walk in like you belong, head held high, and just go up to the person and be like, I want to sit down and drink some hot chocolate. Let me at it. And so they walked me through, and they were booked full in the general tea room area. And so what I had to do was I had to sit at the bar. So that's what I did. I sat at the bar, I ordered my hot chocolate, and I actually also went ahead and ordered some carrot cake from Le Hotel de Crillon because I assumed, I'm here, might as well treat myself. It was a $30 sit down, by the way. $30 for just a slice of carrot cake and $15 for the carrot cake and $15 for the hot chocolate. Totally worth it. I felt like a rich bitch. It was great. It's one of those experiences that you're not going to get every day. And so you splurge, obviously. So that's what I did. And so I had my cheesecake. You can actually see the hot chocolate came in this lovely little canter thingy, and it was probably full up to about here. I only had maybe a cup and a half of this because it was so rich and so creamy that I just almost died. It was that good. They also give you this palette of chocolates and little kind of bread crusty things and a water too, because they know for a fact that you are downing some of the richest ass chocolate that you have ever seen. It's basically liquid melted chocolate that you are drinking straight out of a cup. By the way, the carrot cake was delicious. 10 out of 10 would recommend. If you have the idea to splurge, I would recommend it. I mean, like, how often do you go to Paris, honestly? I'm trying to justify this to myself. Such an obnoxious excursion, splurge of my own. I think it was worth it, even though my conscience disagrees. We're just gonna leave it at that. It's 10 out of 10. By the way, my bartender, such a friendly guy. He asked me why I was there, and I told him I was studying the French Revolution. And I think his name was Antonio. He was one of the people that directed me towards the same street that the piano bar was on, because he said the jazz club there was really nice, and that's got like a $13 entrance fee. So we didn't actually end up going there, but I'll take that into consideration if I ever find myself in Paris again. It was really nice. I thought I saved that. So later that evening, to carry on with my independent excursion of Paris, I went to another restaurant. It's called Volcan in the 5th arrondissement in the Latin Quarter. It's in an area that's about 0.2 miles away from the Pantheon. And I had myself a nice Heineken because, I wasn't feeling the wine mood. But I had a Heineken and I had a 3-course meal. So that started off with, oh God, what is it called? Escargot. I had escargot and I had fondue and I had ice cream. It was good. Absolutely recommend. They were delicious. The waiter there was so nice, and now I sound like I'm actually on TripAdvisor right now. I'm sorry, guys. This is the least political stream that I think that I've had in a while, but that's okay. So we're on day, I can't fucking remember what day it is, but it's the 17th of January at this point, and we are visiting. No, it's not the 17th of January. I'm sorry. It is the 18th of January at this point, and we are visiting the Musée d'Orsay. Musée d'Orsay, which used to be a train station. As you can see in this photograph right here, this is an aerial shot. Also not mine. This one is my shot that I got. It's a little bit less yellowy in color scheme, which is fine. But you can kind of tell it's a museum. Lots and lots of post-impressionist and impressionist and whatnot art type things. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a big art person unless it's sculpture-y or architectural or facade or fresco or it's got some sort of meaning behind it that's like storytelling-y. Like, there was a picture of a guy who had his mistress's like private parts painted in just that. And I thought that was interesting. But obviously, I can't include it in this slideshow because it's on YouTube and I would get demonetized and there would be a whole ass thing. But obviously, this is the train station. It's a museum. That was a train station. And, what's very interesting about some of the paintings here. I took this picture of a painting. I can't remember the name of the person who did the painting. But if you notice the perspective here on this, the way that the shadow area is done for this shadow area, the shadow is done for this bird is not quite the way that you're supposed to do a shadow for a bird in a thing. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's a mistake in a painting, and it's mortalized in this museum for all to see, for all to point out. So that's why I took a picture of it, because it's a mistake, because it's interesting, because it has character beyond just, oh, that looks nice, or, oh, I paid for that as a rich person because I wanted to have it. It's got to have some more significance for me to care about it, if that makes sense. So here is another picture of the inside of d'Orsay with, oh, from the clock tower. This is on the 5th floor, I believe it is, when we got to see all of the lovely post-impressionist, impressionist painting people. And I did get to see, oh my god, Van Gogh, the exhibition on Van Gogh as well. And I just, that's an artist that I can appreciate. Not just because his paintings are cool, but because of the tragedy of his life. You know? And that's what I'll say about that. It's one of the cooler places to go, especially if you're really into art. Definitely check it out. I think we stayed there a little bit too long for my liking. But, like I said, art's not my main. I like history and architecture and statuary, and that's kind of where I found myself more often than not. And speaking of which, here is the Pantheon. Now, the Pantheon is actually also a tomb. This is kind of inside reconstruction, miniature version of the Pantheon. From the inside of the Pantheon, this is the outer door of the Pantheon, although front door doesn't work because we use side doors in France, like noobs. This is the interior, and you can actually see both the flooring and the ceiling of it, and just that gives you an idea kind of exactly how large this building is. It's huge. I mean, take a look at that. Take a gander. It makes you feel like a very small person on a very small scale. Physically, you are amongst gargantuan architecture. That's something to behold, quite honestly. And I have more pictures of this. The ceiling itself is all the way up there. Look at that. That's, Weebo and her obsessions with ceilings. I think the reason why I'm obsessed with ceilings is because you don't get a lot of that in Greek ruins. We don't see many ceilings in ancient Greece. It's quite unfortunate. I'm not going to lie. But I digress. I thought it was beautiful. Quite magnificent. Something to behold. But carrying on, there is also a little bit of a pendulum set up that's intended to exhibit the way that the earth moves, the fact that the earth moves. And this is a replica of an experiment that was put up not several hundred, but a while ago, many moons ago. It was set up and taken down and then put back up just to kind of memorialize the fact that this is something that happened here. And the reason why it works is because fucking high-ass ceilings, bitch. That's why it works. But like I said, the Pantheon is home to several interned bodies of famous people throughout France, and this is one of them. There are some more of them. The tombs themselves you can't go inside of, but you can actually look into some of them and take pictures of them as well. Some of the tombs you can actually walk through, but a few of them are cordoned off. Specifically, here is the tomb of Voltaire, famous French figure that I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard of. I can't, for the life of me, think of the reason why he was famous at the moment. Maybe it's because of the alcohol affecting my brain at this point. But I digress. So, the 19th, we went to the top of the Eiffel Tower. And now I don't have an actual picture of the Eiffel Tower in daylight because I don't care to. Because everyone and their mother has seen what the Eiffel Tower looks like. And so I don't feel like I need to take a picture and exhibit it to you guys here. So I didn't take a picture. I don't have a picture of the Eiffel Tower in daylight. I'm sorry. But what I do have is so much better. And that is the view of the rest of Paris from the Eiffel Tower. And that is from all sides of the Eiffel Tower, in fact. And so here it is. I hope you enjoy. So immediately after the Eiffel Tower, I had plans to take myself over to the Moulin Rouge, which is the oldest cabaret in all of Paris. Famous because they are the inventors of the can-can. And I don't have pictures. And even if I did have pictures, I wouldn't be able to show them to you guys because they're a plethora of naked ladies present there. What I do have is a picture of the entrance to the actual area where it is that you're supposed to, and a picture of the stage before it is that everything went down. Now, I cannot recommend that you visit Moulin Rouge enough. It's expensive, yes, but it is so worth it. Let me explain why. The show is beyond what it is that you expect. It's not just topless ladies dancing the can on stage for an hour and a half for your pleasure and entertainment. It is exotic. It is exceptional. It is breathtaking, anxiety inducing. To give you an example, and this is the one that I don't feel bad about spoiling because I think that everyone should have a warning when it comes to snake acts. There was a song that they were doing wherein one of the girls, well, first off, before the girl does the thing that I'm about to express to you, a giant tub full of water rises from the middle of the stage, from like within the floor. And in this tub of water, we have a number of giant, large snakes just kind of hanging out in there, chilling. I don't like snakes. I really don't like snakes, but I enjoyed this act immensely because the girl does is she pretends to be like a sacrifice for some cultural festival or whatever. She gets on the dais right in front of the tub, and in the middle of the song, she dives in to the tub full of snakes. And it's like maybe 4.5, 5 feet deep. And she's just kind of dancing, twirling around with the snakes in the tub. And then finally, at the end of her song, she gets out of the tub with one of the freaking snakes, and she's just chilling with the snake. By the way, she is topless during this whole time. She's chilling with the snakes. Then she walks off stage, the tub goes back into the water, and the show carries on. But that is an example of one of the acts in the Moulin Rouge. I was impressed. There was also an act with rollerbladers. There were acrobats. There was a guy rappelling from the ceiling. The costumes were gorgeous. I cannot recommend that you guys go to this enough. And it's obvious that they don't need my endorsement of the Moulin Rouge, but they're getting it anyway because it's spectacular. It was one of the highlights of my week. And I don't regret spending every single penny, even the extra 10 that I spent on the champagne. And we are getting close to the end of the slideshow, my friends. I'm sorry to say. One of the last places that I ended up going to was the Musée de la Préfecture. Musée de la Préfecture. It's the police museum. And in the police museum, you can see a guillotine blade and a miniature replica of a guillotine. This is about 1/3 the size of a normal guillotine of what it would look like, because you do need to get enough speed to kind of slice off the head wholesale. And that brings us back to the French Revolution aspect of this stream. So after this, I made the walk. This was during the day, but after this, I kind of chilled at a cafe for most of the day because I was exhausted from my travels. But made one less valiant effort to go visit the Sacré-Cœur Basilica. And let me tell you, on the way to the Basilica, there is an absolute mountain of stairs that you have to surmount in order to get there. But once you get there, right, the Basilica is gorgeous. I didn't actually get a chance to go inside because I think they were closed by the time I got there, but I did get this lovely view. And this is the last picture in the slideshow that I have. And I think that it rounds out the trip quite nicely, gives you an idea of exactly what it is that I experienced, and that is a wide variety of intrigue, decoration, and something else. But that is the extent of my presentation for you on my trip of Paris. I hope it wasn't like too rapid fiery. I tried to make it a little bit less obnoxiously long than the last stream that I had on Greece, which I had a lot more pictures of, not gonna lie. And a lot more to say, too. But I also had a guest the last time that I was on. While Paris is not my favorite place that I've ever visited, it is certainly a joy to have been there, a privilege to have seen the things that I did. I'm not sorry that I went. Totally worth it. I have goals, aims to travel the world, visit all of the things, and do all of the stuff, and meet all of the people. And I'm thinking that I've made some good headway in this regard. So I'm satisfied. I hope that you guys were satisfied by my regaling to you the tale of my Paris trip. I hope that I didn't bore anyone to tears. I hope that at least I was a little bit educationally informational. And I hope that my drunkenness and my bathroom break did not detract too much from my presentation overall. More than that, I hope I've given you guys some plans, some future plans that inspire you to take that journey yourself. Because I do think that we do need to be more cultured as a species. I think getting to know people, getting to know places, getting to know experiences is very important, even if they might make us feel a little bit uncomfortable at times, which was certainly the case in Paris. A lot of the waiters played dumb with me when it was that I asked, Parlez-vous anglais? Because it's what they're wanting to do. It happens. Eric the Dread, where do you want to go next, Weebo? I've always been partial to visiting Italy, but I think it's going to be a toss-up between Greece and Poland. Reason why is because my grandmother is getting up there, and for as many times as she's traveled the world, she's never actually visited Poland. And to be quite frank, I'd like to take her on a trip to Poland at some point before that's no longer possible. Yeah. So maybe I'll start planning that trip quite soon. The other place that I would really like to go is obviously Greece, and I'd like to take boyfriend on that trip because he's also never been to Greece, but I think that can wait a little bit longer than my grandmother can because she is getting up there. But it is a toss-up between those two locations. It's really whatever happens first. And if I get an opportunity to go somewhere entirely not within my immediate purview, then I will jump on that opportunity as soon as I can because I'm not one to look a gift horse in the mouth, right? So I love traveling. I will always love traveling. I will always hopefully be planning my next trip in the future, and I hope that you guys can enjoy going on these journeys with me. Just please don't go to any Islamic countries, at least not on your own. I definitely will not be taking any exotic risks of that nature if I can help it. Although I will say, I do have plans to visit Egypt at some point in my life. My cousin went there while I was in Paris, actually. We were on the same flight because he had to connect to Paris. We were on the same flight to Paris, and then he had to go to Egypt. He was actually in Egypt while I was in Paris. And as much as they like to talk about how Egypt is very Muslim and maybe slightly dangerous depending on the year, he was fine. So perhaps it matters which Muslim country it is that I'm visiting at what point in time. Of course, I will measure that with my own care when it comes to that. So never fear. I will approach this very logically. Anything else before I go? Anything at all? In that case, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that people watching this in the future have enjoyed this and I've inspired some future world travelers a little bit. I hope it wasn't too boring. And thank you guys so much for all of your comments. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to respond to all of them while they were happening. Thank you for your shares, your likes, any future reviews and comments. I thank you for that as well. Thank you to those who donated. And just all around, thank you guys for being here with me, enjoying this as much as I am. Because as much as I love traveling, I also like talking about my travels. And, you know, hopefully this will serve a purpose in the future. I'll get to share these with my children and their children and whatnot. All right. In that case, I'm going to end the broadcast now. Again, thank you so much. Bye, guys.